how do you go beyond great therapy and actually grow a thriving practice in the preschool setting? If you've ever wondered how to get more referrals, establish strong school partnerships, or market your services effectively, this episode is for you. Today, I'm joined by Kim Dillon. She's a speech language pathologist with over 20 years of experience in both public schools and private practice. For the past 3 years, she's been running her own thriving private practice, focusing on early language development, speech sound disorders, and childhood apraxia of speech. She's trained in prompt, DTTC, and Kaufman approaches and works primarily with preschool age children in school settings and her clinic. Kim is a firm believer in the power of collaboration, working closely with families, teachers, and other professionals to ensure the best outcomes for young children. Outside of work, she's a busy mom of four, an active member of the community, and always on the go with her family's many activities. Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Does that cover everything, or is there anything else you'd like to add before we talk about growing a private practice in the preschool setting?
No, I think that was great.
Okay, awesome. So, why did you start your own private practice?
So for me, I would say that I did not go into the field really with the desire ever to have my own private practice. I really loved the school settings. And then when I moved into the private practice settings, I really enjoyed just being part of a team working for someone else. It was never a desire for me to own my own private practice. And really, the only reason I went into it was for personal family reasons and scheduling. That's kind of what pushed me to that point. And I was able to explore those options. And then, kind of being on that side of it after experiencing it, my eyes were just open to the world of private practice and owning my own private practice. And it's something I'm so glad that I did. But I was really just with our kids and the age ranges of our kids and schedules, it was something that I explored because of that. And I am really appreciative of my experience working for other companies. Actually, I think that helped me grow and establish myself as a clinician. And I'll always be so thankful for that. But then I'm also very thankful for just knowing this world of owning a private practice because it's more than I could have ever known. And I'm excited to be a part of it.
So I know you said that you really enjoyed all of the places that you worked and you're very grateful for all of those opportunities. So how did your experience in those positions shape the way that you run your practice or how you even started your practice?
So I think being in the public schools first really showed me the importance of collaboration with teachers. And that is probably one of the biggest parts of my private practice now is having strong relationships with teachers who are also working with the same kids that I'm serving. They are with the kids a lot during the day, sometimes Monday through Friday. In the preschool population, it's definitely less than that, maybe 2, 3 days a week. But being in the private schools or being in the public schools before that just really showed me the importance of making sure the teachers understood what the kids needed, what they were working on, giving them resources so that they could also help implement some of the things that we're doing in speech therapy. So that's one of the ways that I think that served me well, having that experience, kind of seeing their side of things. And that's something I've brought to my private practice for sure.
Nice. So how and why did you focus on preschool as that setting and population?
Sure. So when I decided to go out on my own, it was definitely for schedule reasons for our own family. The way that our kids are spread out, we had three different drop off times for my kids for school in the morning and three different pickup times. And it was a lot, even with help and carpool and babysitters. It was a lot. And then their activities. And so I was really trying to focus on that preschool time, honestly. So logistically, it was appealing to me. I wanted those times. And then at the time, my youngest was in a preschool. So I kind of just started there. I had a couple kids in the neighborhood that I was able to see. Those kids were at home still during the day. And so that worked for my schedule. And then I just approached my daughter's preschool director and asked if she was interested in preschool screenings. And that's where it started. And so just time wise, that worked for me. But also, I love that age range. I love that early intervention, those preschool years where you can really get in there and try to teach parents and try to teach teachers and try to make a difference. And so that's really why I was attracted to that population in that age range. And the preschools, we have a lot in our city in Fort Worth. And so that's just where I decided to focus my efforts.
So you were kind of able to get your foot in the door initially with your daughter's preschool. How were you able to network from there with the other preschools and market yourself?
So I would say trying to establish relationships with directors was my primary focus. So I had that in with my daughter in the first preschool, and we did start screenings there. And then a couple of the other kids I was seeing in the neighborhood, once they started preschool, the parents would ask me if I could go in to their preschool to do speech. And with most of the preschools here, and I'm sure it's probably very similar in other areas, they allow different speech therapists to come in to do speech therapy. And so that's how I got my foot in the door in a couple of others. And I was just really trying to make an effort to establish relationships with those directors. And so I would introduce myself, kind of ask them where they wanted me to work. And then even after that, I would continue to check in with them, letting them know I'm still there, asking if they had any needs for their teachers, and just really trying to allow them to get to know me and establish a relationship with them because they are kind of the gatekeepers. They're making the decisions, and there might be several speech therapists there. And I just wanted to make sure that I was establishing that relationship with them. So I think in doing that with a couple of other preschools, then I was able to ask if they had screenings going on at their school. And if they didn't, they had gotten to know me throughout that semester, and I was able to offer that for them. So I think just relationships are really big in those settings and making sure you're getting to know the directors and then also the teachers.
So most of the referrals initially were coming from other clients that you were seeing, and then you would go
Mhm.
into the schools. So assumably maybe there were other kids that other speech therapists were coming in. So how would you kind of balance that with other SLPs being there and also trying to establish yourself?
So with some of the schools that I'm at, there are several speech therapists that are in there. And so they're still coming in and seeing their kids for speech therapy. But if it's a school where they're not offering screenings yet, then I would be the speech therapist that would come in and offer screenings at that school and take any kids from that process. If a school is already offering screenings, then that's kind of where that conversation ends. Because I do think that you want to be respectful of the other speech therapists in our field. And if they already have a school that they're doing that at, then I've just made sure that I was like, that's great. Just making sure that you have that service and try to just offer resources in a different way.
That sounds good. So what unique benefits or challenges do you think come with working in this setting compared to others?
I think one of the benefits is obviously working alongside the teachers. And that would be something that is when I'm in there with a kid, I really try to check in with the teachers to make sure they don't need anything in the classroom or that we're kind of seeing the same thing when I'm having a session with them. Are they seeing carryover in the classroom, or can I give them strategies or techniques to use in the classroom? That's definitely been a big benefit. I would say a challenge is not being able to have the parents in the session with me because we're doing sessions during their preschool day usually. I'm able to communicate with the parent, but they're not always in the session with me. And so that would be really one of the challenges because I really like parents in the session with me if they can during those younger years just for them to learn. But it still has been good to be able to, the parents are receptive. I'm able to talk with them and call with them, but it's just not quite the same as having them in a session. So that would be one of the challenges for sure.
Yeah, can you talk about some of the strategies around that? Like you call them after,
Mhm.
or you send a, I don't know, report home in their backpack, something like that?
Sure. So we have set up we do, it's a summary progress report, but we put them on these little notepads. And so during a session, and we have a couple contractors that work with us, and this has worked really well for our whole speech source company. But during the session, we'll write notes just like you would, like a little progress note. And we use that. We take a picture and we upload that into our EMR system. So that's also their note. But that is also what we write as far as communication that's going back and forth with the child. So that will go home in the backpack. We walk them back to the classroom, let the teacher know what we worked on, see if they have any questions, and then that goes home with any other homework or anything else that we want them to do. So it's still paper copy. Like that's what's been working best for us. But we take pictures of everything and then we upload that into, we use Simple Practice as our EMR system and we upload that as an attachment to the notes. And then if there's anything more detailed that we need to write, that we can write that into a note within the system. But that's what the parents have really enjoyed because it's just easy to read, it's simple, and it gives them one thing to do each week.
That's great.
Yeah.
So I noticed that you're trained in prompt, DTC, and the Kaufman approaches. Are you able to niche down in the setting that you're working in, or how are you referring the clients that are not appropriate for your caseload?
Like not apraxia.
Yeah, is that your favorite type of client to work with? Do you have a favorite? Do you try to see them all? How are you handling referrals?
So I would say the two that I see the biggest in that population are either late talkers, kiddos that are just not talking yet, or those speech sounds, possible apraxia of speech. And so I love the late talkers too. So I definitely keep those on my caseload and see them. With everything else, I will say that I use a lot of those approaches, even with kids who are not necessarily childhood apraxia of speech. I love just a lot of the cueing systems of prompt and DTC. I use that across the board, honestly, with a lot of my caseload. But specifically, we have a couple of contractors in our schools. And if they're late talkers, I will pass those off before I would kid that suspected childhood apraxia of speech, because I definitely like to try and keep those on my caseload.
Okay. Are you seeing I'm sure you're seeing developmental stuttering in that population too. Are your therapists confident in treating that? Are you referring out for those? How does that work?
Right now, we've been treating that. And I would say that was like a big teaching opportunity for us with the teachers and giving them resources for parents also, that developmental stuttering, because that's very big in that population, that preschool population. So giving the teachers the resources to kind of understand the difference between, what is maybe developmentally appropriate stuttering, or maybe when the parent might want to refer out to a speech therapist, giving them strategies to do in the classroom for these kids, and also things to send home for the parents. Those were things that we did when we did some in services for these preschools at the beginning of the year, was giving teachers all of these resources that they felt a little bit more empowered to talk about with their own parents. And that's been really helpful, I think, for everybody, for the teachers to understand their role, and then for the families to understand too.
Yeah, no, that's great. Are you seeing much autism in the population that you work with?
I feel like what we're seeing a lot is kids who are not diagnosed yet and families who are not ready for that yet.
Hmm.
So that is why another reason I really like this population is because whether they're going to get a diagnosis or not, we're there for intervention, and we're giving parents tools, we're giving teachers tools. And I think we have seen a lot of success with that. I think establishing the relationship with those parents right now is so important for when they maybe come around to be ready to have some of those harder conversations. One of our topics when we did in services with the teachers in the preschool was how to talk to parents about this. So I think teachers are pretty savvy with just information now, and knowing that a child might need services. And so our role was helping give them the words and the tools and the means to kind of have those conversations with parents to get them to getting the services that they might need.
Hmm.
Because the teachers they're seeing those parents every single day at drop off, they're seeing them at pickup, they're establishing those relationships first. And so we felt like it was really important for them to understand. And I heard this from parents too, is when teachers would say something that the parents were not ready to hear yet, or they weren't there yet. And then they would just shut down and they didn't want to hear it. And so we were really trying to teach the teachers like how to go about having those conversations with parents. And I think that has been very helpful for a lot of the schools that we've been at.
It's like you're not only helping children communicate, but you're helping staff communicate as well. But I totally get that. I'm running into that because I work with like a similar population and I see that the parent is not ready. But then I think about the benefits of getting the diagnosis versus not. And like you said, essentially you're still going to treat it like what you suspect. I put it in the report and hopefully they'll do with it what they will. But I feel like it's a lot of consulting along with,
Yes.
so it's interesting because you're not really working directly with the parents, you're doing more consulting with the teachers. Whereas because I'm doing in-home, I'm doing more consulting with parents. It's a different dynamic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's been great too, because when I'm working with the teacher and I'll kind of touch base with her and say, okay, this is what we're doing. Are you seeing in this classroom? What do you need? And they might have a need for me, in talking specifically for kids who are possibly autistic and are going to need additional services. If they're telling me other needs that they have, then I have referral sources for OT. And so this actually happened this past year. And it's so great when you can look back and you can see how great a process works. And it doesn't always work that way, but I was able to refer out to an OT for this family. And they reached out because I had established that relationship with them already. And so I feel like they had trust in me. They were seeing growth in communication. They knew that the teacher and I were a team and working together for this child. And so the next step was we referred out for some OT services. And so they went there, they trusted us, and there were some sensory needs that really needed to be met. And she was able to work with them. And this child just took off, like after he got these interventions that he needed. And I think that sometimes is just how it works with a parent, like getting them on board with everything is being able to give little bits of information at a time, and they trust you and it works. And then you can move on and refer out to the next step. And so that is, again, it's why I love this setting and this population, and why I love collaboration is because I would have never gotten that far with the child just on my own for speech therapy. I needed the teacher, I needed an OT, I needed the parent. We all had to be together for a team, and that child is doing really well. So just why I love that setting.
Well, thank you for those tips. Those are, I think, like you said, like collaboration really is key, and having everyone on board for those harder conversations is going to help support the child in such a wonderful way. So, what tips do you have on being successful in growing your private practice in the preschool setting?
So again, I think just that definitely the communication and relationships with the directors and the teachers, that's huge. That would be my number one. Number two would be establishing kind of systems and protocols that you use, because once you're in a setting a lot, you want to make sure that you have a system in place, like whether you're screenings or things that you're handouts that you're sending home to parents, just kind of having a system in place instead of having to reinvent the wheel every single time you need to do a screening or someone wants an evaluation or you're doing an in-service. Once you can set up those systems and processes in place, I think it makes it much easier and it streamlines it. And then I think also having a referral source, whether that be play therapists in that age group that you can refer out to, OTs, anything like that, is really great to have a team that you can say, I don't know, I can't help with that, but I have someone that can. And that just, I think, helps them continue to trust you as their speech therapist. And then they know that your end goal is to get that child on track.
So, starting with that referral source, is that something that you had early on or you grew over time?
I think grew over time. And I think that's just within working in a private practice previously. I'd worked with different OTs. And when I moved out, my business partner, Mary, and I when we started the speech source and we were on our own, one thing that she really wanted to focus on was creating a network for pediatric service providers in our city. So she felt like that was really important, and that has been very beneficial. And that has been finding other service providers, counselors, play therapists, occupational therapists, dentists, ENTs, all of those things, getting us together. It's usually every 3 months we try to get together and just get to know each other, and so that we can be a referral source for other people.
That's awesome. So not only meeting other people to know who you can refer out, but also for them to get to know what you do so that they can also refer to you. What other tips would you have or something that you wish that you implemented early on in your stage of growth?
I would say what I wished I had implemented early on was more of those systems and protocols, kind of creating something from the very beginning that I knew could just be repeated over and over again. Um, but I think one thing, if I was going to give a tip for someone who is starting in really any setting to go in, because there are a lot of speech therapists. Anita, I don't know if you've experienced this going into the preschool. Do you have quite a few other therapists in your area that are going in?
Yeah.
So we've really tried to figure out, which is great. I think that's great that they have different choices in going in. And I think that as a speech therapist, you should always be very respectful of, you know, everybody is working hard and has the end goal of, a child's communication in mind. But I would say to just figure out how to set yourself apart from other therapists going in. Mary and I really started off with figuring out how we could be a resource for our community. That was kind of our goal in mind for parents, for teachers. How could we offer just resources for the community? That's how we wanted to be known. And that's kind of why we started our podcast. And that's why we created a lot of the free resources that we did. And that's why we started doing teacher in services. It's because we wanted to try to do something different and get ourselves known that way. And so that would kind of be what I would suggest, is for someone to just figure out how they can kind of position themselves in a way that makes them a little bit unique, and why someone would choose them for a speech therapist.
Good point.
So that's a really good point. When you started kind of creating those different resources, how did you get them into the community? What were your different strategies for just getting them in front of people?
Mm-hmm. So we started our podcast, and that was just kind of getting information out there that was free for anybody who wanted to listen. And that's been different topics throughout. We created a lot of parent handouts that when we did the teacher in services, we made sure all the teachers had these on hand. Our first year, we reached out to several preschools and we offered our teacher in services for free, just to get our name out there and get in the door. And I think that was a really great strategy, because we were able to come in and kind of show our knowledge and what we knew and build some trust. And then that next year we had double that ask us to come in and do in services. And we were able to be paid at that time for those in services. So I think just things like that. And I think just being a part of your community and seeing how you can serve in different ways and doing it through your company's name is a great way to get your name out there too.
Those are really great tips. Is there any advice that you would give an SLP who's maybe they feel a little uncomfortable with self-promotion, or they want to start to be more of a resource to their community, but they just haven't found their footing there yet?
Mm-hmm. So something that we've tried to do is marketing. Marketing's tricky. Marketing in our city is pretty tricky because it's a very word of mouth. Our town in Fort Worth, it's very word of mouth. So even if someone sees you in a magazine or sees your name somewhere, and it's not just speech therapy, it's really any business, they want to know someone who's worked with you or someone who knows you that's going to validate that referral. And so that's been tricky as far as just your traditional marketing for us. But I think for someone who isn't comfortable just reaching out to a director or like putting themselves out there. So something that we've done is we've written things for the preschools for them to send out to their teachers in their monthly newsletters or emails. And it might just be like 3 great books for the month of February or 5 fun toys for summer play, something that's going to benefit the parent, whether they need speech therapy or not, something that they will enjoy reading that they can put into practice, whether it's for their kids. They have kids in preschool, so they are going to like books and they're going to like toys. So we've done that. That's really easy to do. And a director can put it in or not, but you can say, hey, I wrote this. If you want to include it with your newsletter, I think your parents would appreciate it. I've done that for our neighborhood has a little newsletter. I did a little gift guide for our neighborhood has a ton of kids. So I did a gift guide in our neighborhood write up for kids before Christmas. And again, it just has your name and it has your company, but you're just serving the community. So I think if you can look at it more on the side of how can I serve my community versus how can I market myself, it becomes more authentic. And I think people resonate with that really well sometimes.
Those are really great tips. Yeah. So not just marketing yourself in the typical way that we think about like marketing and posting things, but just trying to get your name more in front of people for ways that you can help them improve their lives, right?
Mhm. Right.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, if somebody wanted to connect with you, learn more from you, where can they do that?
So we have a website. It's the speechsource.com. And we have some resources up there. We're also on Instagram at the Speech Source, and our podcast is called the Speech Source Podcast. So we are in the process of starting our next season, kind of going through and getting topics for that. So we're excited.
That's awesome. Well, we covered a lot today, and Kim shared some very valuable insights on how to start a private practice, why preschools are a great setting, and practical strategies for growth. She also gave us some really awesome actionable tips and items for marketing yourself and being able to build that strong community. And of course, she shared business strategies for any SLP that can start applying them right away. So thank you, Kim, so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you both.
Thanks for coming, Kim.
Thank you. It was good to see you. I appreciate it.
If you found this episode helpful, share it with another SLP who's looking to grow their practice. And if you're enjoying the show, make sure to subscribe and leave a quick review. It really helps more people find these conversations. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.